When I press this button, a new era in photography begins. Polaroid introduces Sonar automatic focusing. This camera sends out inaudible sound waves that bounce off the subject and return in a split second. You can get a precisely focused picture every time in minutes at the touch of one button.
On this episode of In an Instant, we take a look at the Polaroid Flip, a new instant camera that revives the classic clamshell flip-up flash design first introduced by Polaroid with the 1980s one-step. The Flip is a new tier of camera for Polaroid, presiding as a premium alternative to their now cameras, and a little cousin to the i2. It not only brings the Flip flash back into the mix, but also reincorporates a pioneering autofocus technology that Polaroid first debuted in 1978, Sonar, which hasn't been used in a Polaroid camera in over 20 years. All right, I'm gonna flip a coin. If it's heads, we start the intro. If it's tails, the video just ends right now. It's heads!
The kind of photography that would become part of the human being. Press a button and have the picture.
Welcome to In an Instant. My name is Ben, and I'm trying not to flip my lid because then the lid wouldn't fit back under the container. I'm so excited because Polaroid has introduced a new camera to their lineup, the Polaroid Flip. And when I say new, this thing is quite unlike any camera Polaroid has released in the modern era. While you could squint and block the flip component and say that kind of looks like the Polaroid now, it doesn't feel anything like it. And its capabilities shade closer to the Impossible i1 than any other instant camera out there. There's much to touch on here. There's the Sonar autofocus, there's the flipping with the cool screen, but what is the most important thing to determining the appearance of your final image? Oh, you answered the neck strap. I'm afraid not. Such a bad answer, so off. It's the lens. The Flip's most critical upgrade over the entry level now is its unique lensing system, which contains 4 elements that autofocus based on distances ranging from 65 centimeters to 2.5 meters. The lenses sit within a cog that rotates to summon the appropriate element given the ideal focusing distance as reported by the Sonar unit. They all have sweet spots, which are the numbers listed here, and are calibrated to give you the sharpest focus within the range they have to cover. The Polaroid now, in comparison, has only 2 lenses, one for close-up and one for infinity. That puts a lot of stress on those 2 optical elements to give a reasonably sharp image over a huge range of distances. When you use 4 elements like the Flip, each lens has to cover less ground, and so it can produce much sharper results for the distances it was intended for. The nuance and specificity this system brings to each zone of focus makes the images clear, while allowing for better background separation. And in some instances, they can really resemble images from the Polaroid i2, which is the company's most premium offering at 3 times the price of the Flip. The i2 has a 3-element lens, but unlike the Flip, those elements move continuously back and forth to provide even more exacting focus, whereas the Flip's Big 4 is simply slotting into place, covering a range of distances per element. So while the Flip is far from an i2 killer, it brings great image quality to the table, and at f9-ish with the elements ranging from 94mm to 109, the optical experience is a triumph over virtually any other instant camera out there, especially at this price tier of $200. The aforementioned Impossible i1 retailed for $300 upon release, and featured a similar zone-based lensing system with 5 elements instead of 4. So, although these cameras do not resemble each other at all, the Flip is more closely related to that camera than the others in their modern lineup. It's like the i1 2. Okay, now having said it, I get why they didn't go with that. It's a little confusing. The i1 was released with an infrared autofocusing technology that ended up being integrated into the now cameras for their 2-element autofocus systems, but gone were the days of Polaroid's revolutionary Sonar autofocusing technology, which sent literal sound waves that rebounded off the subject and returned to the sonar plate on board, which then reported the intended distance to the focusing motors, all very instantly, all unbelievably cool, and all very fun to explain at parties when you have like nothing else interesting to say or haven't really been up to anything sick lately. The SX70 sonars were the first SLRs in the history of cameras to have autofocus technology, and Polaroid implemented this wild, extremely analog tech into their lineup all the way up until the demise of their camera manufacturing days in the early 2000s. When I launched the channel In an Instant on YouTube, the very first video I released was about this technology. And while I expressed interest in Polaroid Originals bringing Sonar back, I didn't in my heart believe they would ever actually do it. Sonar AF is not installed in any modern cameras, and it would be a massive undertaking and almost pure fan service to use it in 2025, despite some of its advantages. But Polaroid as a company has reached the point where they can pursue an idea like this, and legacy fan service is sort of possible now. They can implement an homage to the company's history, and so against all odds, a classic magic trick has returned to Polaroid cameras, and that is big for business. I assure you of that much. It's at the very least what I can assure you of. And the Sonar integration isn't all novelty. Because Sonar sends a physical signal, it works in any lighting condition. So while many autofocusing technologies struggle, hunt, or have to pre-flash when used in dark scenarios, Sonar is ready to go, baby. It makes the camera well suited for how Polaroids are very often used, to take flash photos indoors. And it can be quite good at that. Sonar does have some drawbacks, however. If shooting through a window, the sonar ping will hit the glass instead of the intended subject beyond the window, reporting the wrong distance. You might wonder, how often are you shooting through a window? Well, I don't know whether it's because I live in New York, which has like millions of windows, the most windows per square mile of anywhere else in this country, but I've run into several scenarios where I couldn't fire the shutter because the camera thought I was too close to the subject, confused by the window in front of it. The Polaroid Flip, like the Now Plus and i2, can connect to the Polaroid app and be used fully manually. You can set the shutter speed, aperture, and also select the focusing zone you intend to use. This can help circumvent the warning error you'll get from being too close. As of the production of this video, during which I've been using a pre-release version of the app features, even setting it manually gives you the too close error, but I've been promised by multiple folks on Polaroid's engineering team that this will be amended, and hopefully it is by the time the camera actually comes out. Another hitch to Polaroid's new Sonar autofocusing system is that, unlike the SX70, the Sonar is more omnidirectional, not as center-weighted, meaning the Sonar doesn't just simply focus on what's at the center point of your frame, instead it sort of sprays the signal, purportedly to make the action of pointing and shooting easier. You don't need to center your subject to focus and then reframe. But in reality, it can lead to dreaded oopsie whoopsies, like the camera choosing to focus on elements to the far extremes of your frame. This doesn't happen all the time, but every other pack or so, I'll get a photo where I'm like, why did it do that? That's just like not what I wanted. I prefer center weighting. I think it's the version of Sonar or any single mode autofocus that makes the most sense. And hopefully they narrow the beam when Gen 2 rolls around. While the Flip does have these nifty app features I discussed, it has a simpler set of onboard controls more in line with the Now Plus. And they display on this amazing screen which folds into the body in a seemingly unreal way. This camera's like an anti-doinker. This is a revenge body for sure. By long pressing the function button, you have exposure compensation controls, double tapping gets you double exposure, and a tap and a long hold gets you a self-timer. These are lovely to have on board, and it's become standard fare from all Polaroid cameras from the Go upwards to have such things, but the exposure compensation I think could use some more juice. To my knowledge, the up position and down position change the metering by half a stop, so if you want a brighter image, you'd go up a notch or down for darker. But half a stop doesn't seem powerful enough and isn't typically what I need out of exposure compensation. Rather, at least a full stop or more is necessary to fight dramatic backlighting, for instance. And in general, I think the meter defers to underexposure versus overexposure. Well, I'll tell you this, the one time the Flip always seems to crack is when its namesake is employed, the Flip Up Flash Unit, which is among the best I've ever seen on a Polaroid, with an effective range of 15 feet of flash power. For a point of comparison, the Polaroid Impulse, which is lauded for its flash power, has an effective range of only 10 feet. This absolute cannon throws a pretty amazing light and situates this camera well for the party camera aesthetic that these clamshell Polaroids are often known for. And yes, the flash toggles on automatically when you open the camera, and after you take a picture. Polaroid wants this to be the easiest point-and-shoot experience possible for people, and shooting with auto flash is typically going to give you the best chance at a properly exposed Polaroid, even if that's not how I typically use it. To touch once more on the design and the Flip's build quality, I think the most striking thing about it when I first held one is its construction, which feels very unlike the i2 and the Now Plus. I was able to have multiple chats with Polaroid engineers throughout the pre-release process of this camera, and it became clear that although Polaroid's camera lineup shares components and technology, they are sort of developed on their own tracks, sometimes from a less common point than you'd think. The Flip doesn't feel like anything they've made before. It's not just a Now Plus with a flip-up flash. It's heavier, it's more durable, even more so than the i2, I think. And it can handedly survive the torrent of the inside of a bag because it folds down to protect itself like a porcupine. These two little divots beside the lens once served as the connector for a potential filter holder, which I don't think Polaroid has an immediate plan for, but I like that they left it in for 3D printer enthusiasts who could easily make a filter holder for old Spectra filters or even a screw mount. The camera works via a rechargeable battery that sits within the camera, and although it doesn't freely pop out if it needs to be replaced, it is now situated in a much simpler location than prior cameras for swappability.
There's a single screw in the back you can kind of see down there. If you take that one screw out, then you can just pop this whole back panel off, and the battery's right here. And there's a little...
The whole body shell comes off? Like...
Yeah, this just pops off, and then you can replace the battery. You can buy it from iFixit.
Cool. Put
it back in. It's only one screw, so...
Oh, that's great.
The Flip feels so premium that I expected a heftier price tag than $200, which this retails for in this white colorway and also a black version, which is pretty tough. No, the transparent version is not available for sale. It's an engineering model that would completely expose film to light the moment the film's dark slide ejects. I was particularly surprised about the price point because the Now Plus retails for $150. And on a fundamental level, these cameras have very similar auto features. But for the huge lensing upgrade alone on the Flip, I expected there to be a bigger price differentiator between these two. I think if someone was choosing between the Flip and the Now Plus, for a $50 difference, the Flip would be an easy choice. Polaroid cameras and film are basically a razor and blade model. You end up spending much more on the film over time, so it's worth the $50 premium cost for the Flip camera, in my humble and very, very honest opinion. This isn't to say the Now Plus is dead. I still think it takes awesome photos, and the Gen 3 version has gotten the camera to a great place, both mentally and physically, but the Flip will certainly eat up some of its appeal and audience. Okay, I'm gonna flip the coin again. If it's heads, I do a pros and cons segment. If it's tails, I delete the video files for this episode and throw all my Internet Instant hard drives down a ravine. It's heads again! First, let's start with the pros. Optics. The Flip is screaming Impossible i1 revival with its turret of lenses at f9 to 10, and with 4 elements, it can often make images that resemble shots from much pricier cameras like the SX70 or i2. Design. This is arguably the most robust camera Polaroid has made since... I don't even know when. This is the tank of tanks, and I see these cameras surviving for a really long time. I appreciate they also tried to be mindful of the battery replacement thing as well. I'm all for making tools that last. And flash power. This thing pops harder than the dude from the Days Go By music video. And that guy really pops. So that is far from faint praise. And I don't really joke around when it comes to the music video for the 2001 song Days Go By the artist Dirty Vegas, so I mean business here. I'm not joking, people. I am talking about the Days Go By music video in a camera review. And cons. The omnidirectionality of the Sonar, I think, could be refined. And if anything, should be center weighted. It's autofocus. But I still love seeing that Sonar honeycomb. Such a throwback. And exposure control. I would have loved for this camera to have a broader range for its exposure compensation, and as you know, I prefer physical switches and dials to button-based menus. Polaroid film has an extremely narrow dynamic range, and while half a stop differences can seriously improve a photo, I'm often combating much more powerful lighting demons than that. And the viewfinder. This is something I didn't really discuss yet, as there isn't a ton to say, but the viewfinder is kind of small, and although it does have an LED light to warn you about under or overexposure, it's not their most wide open viewfinder. I wear glasses, so my eye is further away from the window than non-bespectacled individuals, but even when I de-lens my eye, the window is still a bit narrow and doesn't extrude far enough away from the body to easily nestle my eye in there. And thus, I have complied with Statute 100C45 of the federal government's mandate for pros and cons segments in all Internet Instant reviews, so please don't flip and please don't audit me. I find it cool that basically 5 years to the day this channel was launched with a super nerdy video about Sonar autofocus, that this camera has arrived to bring the technology home. We've certainly come a long way over the last half decade, and if you were around from day one, drop a comment below so I can quietly celebrate you in my home surrounded by candles. Okay, thank you for watching in an instant. Go ahead and flip the switch on that subscribe button to on. Please subscribe. Stay tuned for more reviews, breakdowns, shoots, and all things instant. Bye.